Hi guys, welcome back to Saturday Morning Cartooning. Today we're going to be talking about the Star-Spangled Man with a Plan, Captain America. If you're a citizen of the 21st century, you know who Captain America is. Captain America is Steve Rogers, a physically small, weak, but big-hearted American from 1940s Brooklyn, who, when given a super soldier serum, was transformed into Captain America, a physically tall, strong, and patriotic soldier who helped the Allied forces fight the Axis powers in World War II. Captain America was created as a response to the fighting in Europe in the 1940s. He was initially created by two men, comic writer Joe Simon and celebrated comic artist Jack Kirby. The character was given a book of his own right away, written by Simon and drawn and inked by Kirby. His first issue was released in December of 1940 by Timely Comics, which became Marvel Comics in the 1960s, and was a huge hit. Loved by patriotic Americans young and old alike. Throughout World War II, Captain America was a best-selling title. However, after the war ended, superhero comics began to fall out of popularity. Eventually, the Simon Kirby Captain America book, as well as other superhero comics, were canceled. It wasn't until the 1960s that superheroes became popular again. Captain America came back. This time it was written by the very famous Stan Lee and drawn once again by Jack Kirby. By this time, Timely Comics had become Marvel Comics, and Captain America had a new origin similar to that of the recent Marvel Studios Avengers movies. He was a weakling, transformed into a super soldier, accidentally frozen in ice, only to be revived in the modern age and eventually joining the Avengers. Since the 1960s, Captain America has always been in print. The character was also a Saturday morning mainstay, appearing in his own cartoon in the 1960s, as well as several modern animated shows. Today we're going to try our hand at drawing Captain America in the signature Jack Kirby style. As we draw, think about how we are constructing the body with basic foundational shapes, and then adding details on top of that. Okay, let's get started with Captain America in the style of Jack Kirby. Make sure you got your paper, a pencil that you like, permanent marker for later on when we start inking, and then whatever colors you're going to need. Today I'm going to be using a blue marker and a red marker and some flesh tones. So that's all we're going to need when it comes to color. Alright, let's take a look at the reference drawing. We can see this great Jack Kirby style shading. I love the way he uses a lot of black in the shading. There's a lot of diagonal lines. Captain America has these really cool, looks like fish scales on him. I think that's supposed to, we're supposed to think that that's some sort of armor. But Jack Kirby just put on these little scaly things on there. It looks really cool, actually. And yeah, he's got these big patches of black to show where the shadow is. We're going to try and do that today with some inking later on, but for right now, let's get us a sense of the foundational shapes. The big one, of course, is the shield, which is, you know, just a regular circle, but is the thing that comes out at the viewer first. We see the full shield. This drawing is also a really great example of foreshortening. We've talked about that before in class. It's the illusion of length and depth. For example, on his legs, which is the best example of foreshortening in here, this leg is coming towards the viewer, and this leg is going back away from the viewer. We know that because this foot is going to be a little bit bigger than the foot that's going back, and of course we see a great deal more of the leg over here. As it goes back, it gets a little bit smaller. So let's start with the foundational shapes. All right. Let's just get the circle out of the way. We'll put the shield right about here. And it's a bunch of concentric circles. That means it's circles within circles. And it's a circle, then another circle inside, and then another circle inside, and then another circle inside, and that's going to have the star on it. So we can sketch that star in there next. And once we color these are going to be alternating red and white stripes until you get to the center that's going to be all blue. Alright, he is going to have basically a triangular shaped torso. So let's sketch that in. I'm going to press a little bit darker than I normally would so that you can see the pencil lines. But his torso, meaning the upper part of his body, is going to be a rough triangle, or sort of like a guitar pick. Alright, and then we're going to cap it with a circle. We're putting a circle here because this is going to be our point of articulation. This character, Captain America, is probably one of the more realistically rendered characters we're going to be doing. So if you think to action figures have these joints in them that can bend and move. And that's essentially what we're going to be drawing in. Wherever an action figure would bend, we're going to put an articulation point, and that's going to be our circles. We're going to put one, this one's going to signify the waist, his waist. This one right here is going to be one shoulder. And then there's going to be another shoulder over here, but most of it is cut off by the shield. Alright? Which is right about here. He has his head, which is right about here. He's got sort of like a pill-shaped head. Or a bean. Right? We could put our face lines in there right now. That's going to let us know where his eyes are going to go, where his mouth and other features are going to go. But remember, right now we're just doing all the foundational shapes. We're going to do this one bicep, which is going to be right about here. And then the arm is going to come out this way. There's a little suggestion of the glove, and then a fist. And right now we're just putting in the shape of the fist, where it's going to go. We might need to move these around once we start drawing, so you want to do it with a light touch. The waist is where the legs are going to come out, so we're going to have one leg coming out this way. And depending on how big I drew this, we might get part of his legs cut off by the edge of the paper, and that's okay. That happens to me a lot, actually. Right? There's another circle, an articulation point for his knee. And here's his leg coming down, and yes, we're going to get most of it cut off. That's okay. And that's the top of his boot. And then the other one is going to go back this way. Okay, we could put a little articulation point there for the knee. Now remember, this is the leg that gets smaller as it goes back because it's going away from the viewer. There's his top of his boot, and then his foot, which we are seeing from right as if we were right on top of it. So we're only going to see the shape as if it was from the top. Okay, and there's our foundational shapes. Right, everything we're going to be drawing is basically in there. Now we're going to put the details on top, and let's start with his helmet. Now he's going to have two diagonals coming down like this. That is going to create his mask section, which is going to be up here. And his jaw is going to come down here, and Steve Rogers has a square jaw, so it's going to be lots of angles. He's got a little cleft in his chin too. And then right here we can put in the eye holes for his mask. Here and here. Alright, we're not going to see pretty much the entire eye, but what we are going to see is basically the top lid. So you can draw a top lid, just a dark line in there, and we're going to see the pupil, which is going to be about a little half circle here and here. We might need to move those around based on the helmet as we draw it. Alright, the bridge of his nose It's going to come down this way. We're actually not drawing his nose. We're drawing all the features that indicate that that's where his nose and his nostrils are. So we're only going to draw the bridge of his nose, and then a slanty nostril right there, another line, and then a third line that is sort of indicating that that's a nostril right there. Right, and he's got an open mouth, so we're going to do sort of like a square letter C, but facing downward. That's going to be his top lip, and then his bottom lip is going to come down underneath it like that. Alright, we're going to put in a row of teeth right here, and a tongue. Everything else we're going to shade in because we're going to ink that later on. Alright, and we're going to put in a little bit suggestion of a lower lip. Alright, ears are going to go right where the horizontal lines are, but we're looking at him as if he was a forward-facing character, so we're only going to see just the side profile of an ear on either side. And you could actually just quickly put in little interior ear lines. And let's just bring the helmet up a little bit and then square it off at the top. That is going to just emphasize that he's wearing a helmet. Alright, just like that. And what's really cool about, and I'll show you on the reference drawing, is that Captain America originally had these little wings on the edge of his helmet, which I believe was supposed to signify eagle's wings. They kind of do that in the movies, but it's pressed up against as if it's just a little decoration on the side. But in Jack Kirby's original design, he had little eagle wings coming out of the side, so we're going to draw those on here. And all that is just a little, as if there were a couple of feathers coming out. Here, and then here. Okay, and he famously has the letter A for America on his helmet. So we're going to just put in a bubble letter A. Okay. Alright, let's start to flesh out his body, his uniform a little bit more. We're going to have a shoulder right here into a bicep. Don't worry about the clothes, let's just do the body formation first. Superheroes have that usually like a one-piece suit, and then we add some texture on top of that. We can do this one arm here. We're going to be inking in a lot of the shading later on. Right, there's the top of that glove, and he's got fingers that are sort of, we're going to just create them right here on the glove. Here's one finger, 2, 3, and 4, and then he's got a thumb coming this way. We don't see a lot of it, and Jack Kirby's really good at obscuring some of these details with lots of shading and lots of shadow, and we're going to do the same. He's got a line right there for a cuff, and we're going to put the star on his chest right here. So let's sketch that in. Okay, and right about here is where his chest comes down and then just starts to taper in slightly. We're going to erase that. And now we see how his chest kind of tapers in, creating his waist. Put a little line there for his belt. Actually, let's lower that just a tad because we need space for the stripes. So he's going to have his belt right about here. Belt with a buckle. And then he's going to have stripes. This is all going to be blue here. This is all going to be blue here. And this is going to be all stripes. Okay. Let's flesh out the legs. The knee goes in, and then again it starts to taper out this way, creating shadow, which is what Jack Kirby is really famous for, his bold shadowing. And the last thing I'm going to do before we start inking is I'm just going to make his shield just a little bit bigger. I think it needs just a little bit more width. Again, emphasizing the fact that it is the thing that's coming out at the viewer. We'll fix those stripes as we ink. And we are just about ready to start inking, so let's get started with that. I want you to grab a permanent marker. For this particular character, I recommend, let's see if I can get that on camera, the ultra fine point, not the fine point. You want an ultra fine point. That's really good for getting in the nooks and crannies, especially for a highly detailed character like we're doing today. Let's start with his mask. All right. Now, normally, when I would be inking something, I would say make sure that you keep a smooth line with inking. That's not the case when we're doing a Jack Kirby character. Jack Kirby was really known for his sketchy approach to inking. So it's okay to be a little sketchy with Captain America here. There's some lines that you'll see that are going to be need to be smooth, like say that's up against his face, but we're going to be shading a lot with the ink. Get the cleft of his chin right there. Do his ear, the interior ear line here as well. The eye hole for his mask, and then the eye itself is just the lid and the black pupil. Lid, black pupil. Basically, we're going over all the lines that we just drew with pencil. Let's put in this shoulder here. And the bicep. Now we can get a little sketchy with the ink, because we really want to emphasize those shadows. We can put some lines going down here as if the fabric is stretching. And then here in the crease of the bicep right here. You can really emphasize musculature with shadow. I do that a lot with the diagonal lines like that. And that's the really good thing about when we ink in this Kirby style, we can be sketchy and we can hide mistakes. Okay. It's going to be a little bit of a shoulder section right here before it goes up into his shoulder. This is like a upper back area. This will be his shoulder. Now, I said we need to be a little smooth sometimes, and one of those times is going to be with the shield. Try to keep as steady a hand as possible. It's next to impossible to draw a circle without a compass, which we don't have today. So don't worry about a circle being exactly perfect. Concentric circles. That are way off, and that's okay. Let's actually, we're going to make that the center circle and just make the star a little bit bigger. There we go. Okay, let's put in some more shadowing. That's what's really good about a Jack Kirby design. Go ahead and hide your lines with some shadows. We have some stretching of the fabric over here, so we're going to put some lines here. And you can obscure some things that you might think might not look right, but just putting in a little bit more shadow. And that's it. most of our shading is done. You might come across things you might want to add, like maybe a little bit more shade here, and it's completely up to you. And you might want to just add on some of those trademark Jack Kirby fish scales just on this part of the blue right here. Just like a bunch of connected W's. Alright. Let's take a little bit of time and erase our original pencil lines. Okay, now that our pencil lines are erased, we can add a little bit of color. Now, let's put some blue basically on his entire costume is basically blue. Except for a couple of stripes on his waist. So let's add the blue in first. There's also going to be blue here on the circle that has the star. Red is going to be relegated to this circle that's next to the blue star. We're going to skip one because that's going to be white. And the outer one is going to be red. Okay. He's going to have alternating red and white stripes on his waist. So we're going to start with red, then white, then red, then white, then red, then white, then red, then white. His gloves are going to be red. We only see one glove because the other glove is behind the shield. Boots. The tiniest little bit of tongue right there. We do in red. Finishing touch. A little bit of skin tone. And his eyes, his ears, and of course whatever is visible on his face. Last minute check. Looks good. There you have it, guys. Captain America in the style of Jack Kirby.